All right, guys, welcome to the Grindcast. We are so excited. This is episode 0. So we've already filmed a few, but we figured we need to film episode 0 because we need people to know exactly why we're doing this, what our vision is for it. It's really a passion. So we're excited to be in this podcast studio at the St. George Chamber of Commerce. We've got a great space here, so thanks to Sean there. So anyways, I've got Danielle. So everybody knows, I think everybody in town knows Danielle. You seem to know everybody, but Danielle, of course, runs the Cheesecake Culture and then sits on several boards in the area, the Children's Museum, the St. George Chamber of Commerce, which is kind of how I got connected with Sean and found this space. But anyway, so we're excited for this one.
We are. So guys, I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be part of this. Over here, we have Christian Duncan. If you don't know him, you should, because
Perfect.
If you have money, Christian is very good with it. That's one of my biggest flaws, so I'm glad to have him in my life. But basically, he owns Epic Home Mortgage. And he is just a financial wizard when it comes to real estate investing. Very creative, and so definitely get to know this guy.
Oh, thank you. I like that one. That's good. We should do that when we get home, right?
Oh yeah,
right,
just how great home. You are.
Both of us.
Yes,
yeah. We should do that when we get home.
Christian,
we're gonna remember that. We're gonna
you're so amazing.
things would be great with that. All right, so. Enough about us, though. We're gonna get into this here because we need to talk about some things as far as the Grindcast and what it is. And so we've kind of come up with a series of questions that I think a lot of people either face or even those who are looking to start a business, like they're just curious about. And part of the reason that we started the Grindcast is for me, anyways. Being in the mortgage business, I've come across thousands of people, have seen their financial positions, right? Met so many business owners. And I've seen people that have attempted to start a business and then, it didn't work out, or others who just kind of went through a challenging time. But then I've seen others who kind of went through some really tough times and made it out, right? And I think, part of that is just people when they're facing that challenge, like recognizing that this is part of the game. It's not like if I'm facing a challenge, it doesn't mean that, hey, I'm on the wrong path. That's part of it. Like it's going to be extremely hard. And that's why as entrepreneurs, it's important for us to learn that we've got to be able to do hard things and we've got to be able to get through those. And so that's part of this is sharing the stories of others. And we've already had some amazing people on that have shared going through some really challenging times and how they got through it. And I think people need to know, I think people need to hear those stories so that if they're facing them, they know that, hey, this isn't it. We can keep going.
Yeah, I definitely think that that's really big when it comes to people who are trying to get into business. I mean, there's so many hurdles and just that imposter syndrome of feeling like, you're not good enough and like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? And I can't tell you how many times like I've hit that thought in my, journey is just like, who am I to do this? Like, so it's interesting when you think about it as an entrepreneur and all of the challenges you face and realizing like what sets most entrepreneurs apart from like normal people and is the fact that like we just have other than we're just crazy. But like
you have to be a little crazy.
We have tenacity, right? Like that is the one characteristic where I've been able to push through so many challenges where others would just be done. And as an entrepreneur, like you hit fear just constantly and you have to just battle it out. You have to face those fears and you have to like just keep going. And so you kind of change the definition of what fear means. And I just think that the people who are watching this and trying to start a business can just learn so much from those who've started businesses and gone through a lot of those challenges so that they have the inspiration to keep going and to, figure it out and to learn from their mistakes, because there are so many mistakes that, like, we as entrepreneurs, if we could go back, if we had that coach or that manual of like, okay, like this is how you do it to not totally screw up. I think we would take that, but most of us just kind of wing it, and then we have 10 years of like, oh crap, can I go back now? So
I love what you said about fear, because I think that's so true. A lot of people use fear to hold you back. Like, to be honest, like I've never done this, what we're doing right now, right? We're on all of these episodes, we're talking a lot about just even things within our life, and I've never done that. And there's a little bit of fear there, but it's pushing through it, right? I just purchased a lot to build a spec home on. There was a sleepless night, right? And you remember that?
just one.
There was a couple. I woke up and it was kind of the biggest wire I've ever sent out in my life. And I woke up in the middle of the night thinking, what the heck am I doing? And that's just, and then, recognizing that fear and like, oh, it's just something new. And so, when I did my research and I figured it all out, like I'm on the right path, I'm going down the right road. But anytime there's something new, like we're just going to have fear. And the first time is the worst. And then after that, it gets easier. It's like when I was a kid, anybody who watches this that knows me from when I was a teenager, I was the shyest teenager probably in the school. I was probably the most quiet. Like you would never think that I would come on and do something like this where I would be talking in front of camera and talking to people, right? But you have to have that first time, and that first time is terrifying. And then the second time it's like, okay, I didn't die the first time. And so it gets a little bit easier, and then the more you do it, the easier it gets. And now between sending videos to clients and all that, I'm probably 1,000 videos in, and so it's easy for me to turn it on. But the first one, it's terrifying. Just like the first podcast episode, right? I don't feel nervous now because we've done so many videos and we're having a good time. But I think it's so important to recognize that fear it's normal, but don't let it stop you. Push through it. Yeah. Keep going. Like as long as you've thought through it and you're like, okay, I've got a plan and I'm executing it. Don't stop because of fear. It's going to be there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So something I learned, and actually I love self-development, and I'm just like constantly listening to audiobooks, most of them about 4 times each. But so Mel Robbins, Mel Robbins was great. And she said this thing about fear, that really stuck with me. And it actually changed how I am with public speaking, because that was something that it was a fear, but it just, my voice would crack and you could hear the nervousness, and I was like, I hate that. I'm not necessarily afraid to raise my hand, but for some reason, whenever I raise my hand and speak, or whenever I'm doing something where I'm talking, I would just like have my voice crackling, and I'm like, what the heck? So she said this thing. She said, fear and excitement have the same like physical like emotion, right? Mm-hmm. And so when we're fearful and excited, our body reacts the same. So you just have to change the word in your mind. Mm-hmm. So then you have to support that change. So basically, like if you're scared of something and you want to do well at it, you just have to reframe it. So in my case, like I ended up doing a panel on the startup grind for the chamber a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. And that was the first time where like I actually like implemented that. And so what I did was before it happened, I was a little nervous, and I was like, okay, you're not nervous. Like you're excited because you want to talk about your story. You want to share this with everybody, and it's going to be so impactful. Yeah. And so the more I started talking about it to myself and changing and reframing, the more excited I actually got. And so when I did it, it was the first time my voice didn't crack, and I wasn't nervous. And so from there, it just got easier and easier. And now clearly, like, I'm okay. So.
Yeah. No, I like, and that's one thing that you taught me. You had talked about fear and excitement and kind of feeling similar. And it kind of does. I mean, yeah. I get that feeling kind of in my chest when there's fear. And I notice that same thing when there's some excitement, yeah. Or I'm excited for something. Maybe I'm excited and it's something new.
Yeah.
So, okay, we've got some questions. Should we get into these?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, are you ready?
Always.
So we're going to start right out with a tough one. The first one is, what's the most difficult experience you've faced as an entrepreneur?
Well, I know you're super excited to share this, so why don't you go first?
Put me on the spot. Go for it. So in February of 2020, I had about 18 employees, and we just had everything. It was like it took years to finally get everything dialed, where it was moving fast. We had leads coming in. Um, we were doing just an insane amount of revenue every month. Profits were just amazing every single month, right? And I thought from that, from that point on for that year, it was just going to go through the roof. And so I was really excited about this thing that I had built. And so March 2020, of course, came, and that was COVID. Now, COVID ended up being okay for our industry, but we had this engine that was just, it seemed like it was perfect, and it took years to build and get it perfect, right? And what we were doing, we were primarily focusing on VA loans, and a lot of them were kind of lower credit VA loans. And so we had so many people that were approved, and they were just starting, out there house shopping, right? And when COVID hit, all of a sudden the investors that we were selling these loans to just they stopped buying. And it was a challenging time because we had just come off our best month ever since we had been in business, which I think was February of 2020. And I was having a conversation with my business partner at the time, and we weren't sure if we were going to be able to generate any revenue the next month. Like it looked like it was going to go down to zero.
Now, when was this?
That would have been March 2020 when that happened. March or April of 2020 when that happened. Because we had a lot of people house shopping. We had spent thousands and thousands of dollars marketing leads. We had dialers, like all of this stuff was going on, right? So it was quite expensive to run the engine. And what had happened was during COVID, the federal government put something in place so that you could go into forbearance if you were having trouble, but you didn't need to document it. So it caused a problem on our end because if we do a VA loan, they have to make their first payment in order for VA to guarantee the loan. If they don't make their first payment, VA won't guarantee the loan, and we've got to buy it back at a discount, right? It's called a scratch and dents. We've got to buy it back. And so federal government comes out with this program and not realizing how it affects other things. And so all of the investors that were buying loans said, we're not buying anything that's like below 700 credit score on VA, because if they do a VA loan, we do 100% financing, and then they go into forbearance, we don't know if VA is going to guarantee these. Mm-hmm. So they killed everything. And so we had already spent all the money on leads. They were starting to find houses, and they were said, hey, Christian, I just found a house. I'm under contract now. And we'd have to tell them, sorry, we can't fund it. So we had to cut leads. We had to cut everything back. And there was about a month-long period, maybe slightly longer, where we weren't sure if we were going to be able to do any revenue. We still had the loans that were still funding over the next 30 days, so we had a little bit of time, but it really looked like from that point forward, it was going to be zero. Mm-hmm. And so after that point came, and we had another month, we were able to make a few changes and get something in, not near enough to be profitable. And so that kind of led to the part that was challenging was I had to make a list of everybody to lay off. Mm-hmm. Who was going to stay and who was going to go. And this was probably April 2020 or so. Rates hadn't dropped just yet, where, the market kind of went through the roof later on, and we were really busy. But there was that time where we had to make that list of who to lay off. And I was talking with my business partner, and he said, it was Monday, I made the list, and he said, on this week, you've got to lay everybody off. We can't do it. Now we're dipping into our pocket. And when we're talking about, by this time we're losing $80,000 a month, and we have to dip into our pocket. We can't do it. That day came when I was supposed to do it, and I called them in the morning and I said, I can't do it. I'll cover their payroll out of pocket if I need to. But all these people depend on us, and I can't do it. And so he said, okay, he didn't make me pay out of pocket. He stayed with me on that. And then a couple weeks, about a month or so later, rates dropped, everything came through, and it was okay. And it ended up being a great year.
Yeah.
But it was tough going from your best month that you've ever had to all of a sudden, how are we going to generate revenue?
Yeah.
It was extremely challenging. And then all these people that depend on me to put food on their tables, I don't know what I can do to make sure that they're still okay.
Yeah.
You
No,
know?
that definitely sounds like a challenging time.
So I had a good lesson there that things aren't always as bad as they seem.
Pretty sure that's generally how it goes. Now, I've definitely faced a
So
few
there's
times
mine.
where
There's
I was
mine.
like, "Meow, it's kind of the worst I can see it." But so for me, like I have so many, I just can't. We don't have enough time for that. So so I started 3 months before COVID, and I opened a storefront. And so just since we're talking about COVID, like really quick. So there was one day I remember I went in and we had our storefront we didn't have to close, but we could only do takeout orders, and so it wasn't like open like it normally would be, and so I had to reconfigure the whole model, and I just opened, and so I had to really quick do online ordering, right? And so there was one day where I had like one customer come in and it was like $7. And that was the entire day. And I had to be there because, it's a storefront. So you have to have it open. And I was like,
$7?
What? Yes.
Wow.
$7. I was like, totally worth it. So that was a little tricky. But for me, probably the most challenging time, or one of them, there have been many, but I just remember I faced a lot, like being at the time, like I was a single mom, and so I had two little kids. They're 7 and 9 when I started, and I was just gone all the time working, and I worked 12 to 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, and so I just never saw them, and I had so much guilt. But that as a business owner, I didn't know how to internalize that so that my employees couldn't feel my emotions. And so there was one day where I had 3 of them that just quit all on the same day. And it was a month before Thanksgiving. And so I was kind of like, I remember I closed it down for the first time in the entire time that I had run it. And I think it was like we were about a year and a half in, and that was through COVID and everything. And that was the first day that I shut it down. I went home and I crawled up in my bed and I just cried all day long. And I was like, how am I going to do this? Like, how am I going to get through running it every day by myself? I had no employees at that time. Well, I had one, but it was like Christmas time, so she hadn't started yet. And anyways, so during that time, I literally worked 16-hour days for 6 weeks straight.
Wow.
And it was brutal. And then Thanksgiving came and I worked 36 hours straight, and
like you're talking like straight. Like no sleep.
No sleep. I took a 30-minute power nap on my couch at work.
Wow.
And so it was just brutal. And I mean, you're talking like, I'm not sitting at a desk, I'm on a concrete floor, and literally it's crazy because I've done that a few times where it's 36 hours straight. And there's this time period that your body goes through, for me at least, and about 2 a.m., everything just hurts. My body is just burning, like everything's on fire. And I literally hunched over like walking because my stomach's cramping because I'm just carrying stress everywhere. And so, but you find that about 3 hours later, your body's like, okay, you're not listening, so I'm just gonna stop. Like clearly, you're not taking the hint. I'll stop. So then the pain kind of starts going away, so it gets better. But that was just this crazy time. And then thankfully, I had a really good friend of mine, and he paid for Mary Craft's to come and do like a one-day coaching thing. She mentored me. And she came in, and there was one thing she said where it just really changed the perspective that I had. And she said, "Why is this happening for you?"
Mm.
So instead of being a victim and thinking, "Why did this happen to me?" Like, "Oh my gosh, this is the worst thing ever. Why did this happen to me?" She's like, "Why don't you change that and look at it from a different perspective and change that mindset? And why is this happening to you or for you?"
For you.
And so I was like, "Oh yeah, why is this happening for me?" And so it started shaping the way that I was as a boss. And so, it was a really great experience, but great learning experience.
It's interesting because there's like, I feel like there's so many what seem to be impossible moments.
Yes.
And then you get through them.
Yeah.
Right. But at that moment, like, it seems impossible, like there's no way out.
Yeah.
There's no way to move forward in this. It just seems absolutely impossible.
Right. So true.
Which leads us to our second question. What lesson did you learn that changed everything?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to let you start.
You don't like being put on the spot here, do you?
I mean, I'm just so caring. That's what
All
it
right.
is.
Is there some fear that you're feeling?
No.
Okay. All right. What lesson changed everything for me? So I've been in my industry since 2001. Late 2001 was when I started. So 2004, 2005, I started doing fairly well, but I didn't quite understand money and how to manage it, and so I wasn't doing very well as far as that goes. 2006 came around, and I thought money grew on trees. I was flipping homes. I had several.
I mean,
I learned the hard way. It doesn't.
I guess some money tree seeds.
So I had several cars. I had just all of those things, right? And then I just bought a brand new a Mercedes, and then every extra money that I got, I was just buying another property and doing whatever. And so I thought, this is easy. Money grows on trees. I'm going to be a billionaire one day. Like, this is just how it is. Maybe still.
You still are.
Maybe still. And my plan was, then I was probably 24 or so, and I was like, I'm going to be a millionaire in 3 years. Like, guaranteed I'm being a millionaire in 3 years.
Wow.
What I didn't understand, though, was up until that point, I had won every single time. I hadn't faced a challenge. There was always a win, and it was just our real estate market was you could overpay for a property, and like 6 months later it was worth more. So here I am thinking, like, I'm a freaking genius because I'm just buying these places and they're just going up and going, and then I'm buying another one and that's going up too. And so I'm thinking that I'm a genius. And then 2007 came, and I learned that I was not. And what had happened there was the market had dropped, and I had these properties that I had intended on selling. And so I had all money out in properties. And so my plan was to sell some of these in 6 months and flip them. And then, I was just going to go do it again. Didn't know that sometimes the market drops and you can't sell, and you have to just stick with it. So within, I don't know, 2 months, I completely ran out of money. I didn't have any. And so, luckily I had to come to my parents, and here I am, 27, which was the time I was going to be a millionaire, guaranteed.
Right, exactly.
And I'm going to my mom saying, "Mom, can I borrow $5,000 because I can't make my payments on my brand new car?"
And she's like, "Wait, you're not a millionaire
and
yet?"
And she's like, "Wait, what?" And I'm like, "Yes, this is rough." Like, I had no idea what was going on. It was so crazy. So luckily they lent me the money, and I was able to pay her back in the next month, because I still had income coming in, but I had lost everything else. And thankfully I didn't lose my credit, and I was able to stay afloat. But it taught me a good lesson. It was like, I need to make sure to be prepared for challenging times, because it's not always good. And I think that's like, there's going to be some people who are now in their late 20s that, like, if you look at over the past decade, like, almost everything has gone up and they haven't really lost. Like, there hasn't really been a challenging time. that challenging time changed everything with how I approach money.
Mm.
So when I went through the challenging time, the last couple of years have been tough in our industry. It didn't change my life near as much. I didn't lose everything,
Mhm.
but I was more prepared. From a dollar amount, I lost more in 2022 from the stock market dropping and all that. I lost way more from a dollar amount than I did then, but as a percentage, I didn't lose everything, right? And it didn't really change my life that much, but it was because of having that experience in 2007, 2008 made it so I kept enough liquid that I could weather a storm,
Mhm.
and I could weather multiple storms if I needed to. So that challenge ended up being a big gift because it changed how I managed a lot of those things, right? So that being prepared for a storm, because no matter how good things are, there's a storm that comes at some point in time. And some people, if they're not prepared for it, they lose everything. They go into bankruptcy. Others who learn and are prepared for it, they can weather the storm. They come back out the other side stronger. That was mine.
Yeah. Yeah. So Christian is very calculated risk.
Sometimes
He's
too safe.
definitely
Now
gonna look at all the angles.
sometimes I play it too safe.
um, so for me, I was sitting here thinking, and I mean, there's been several moments where there was a lot of mindset shifts and different scenarios where it kind of changed my perspective on things. But honestly, like I realized there was a time where a guy came in one day to my bakery, and uh, he was the chamber CEO, and I didn't know anything
Not
about.
Sean.
No, it was Don Willie.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, different one. Okay.
Yeah.
Got
So Don actually changed the trajectory of a lot of things for me. So he came in, and I was talking to him, and I tend to be vulnerable with people and connect with them, and that's kind of a blessing and a curse. But uh, so we were talking, and I was just sharing like the challenges that I was facing. Just it was right after probably a few months into COVID, 6 months or so, and so I was just trying to keep pushing through it, and time after time, it was just challenge, just on repeat. And so he was talking about one of the, um, what would you call it? It was like a forgiveness, loan forgiveness type of thing, a grant through the chamber. And so I was like, well, like, do you think that that's something I could get? And he's just like, yeah, I mean, if you try applying for it, and you probably get it. And so I was like, okay, yeah, like I'll try. And so I tried, I didn't hear back. And so he came back, and he's like, so I didn't see anything come through. Like, did you try doing that? And I was like, yeah, I did. And he's like, well, did you do it the right way? And I was like, I don't know, maybe not. So anyways, he kind of walked me through it again. Well, so what happened with that is he shared, about what the chamber did. And I didn't really know that much about chamber networking or anything. Maybe you know where this is going to go. But what happened was I really started getting into networking. I joined a couple different networking groups in the chamber. And at that time I was just a chamber member, but I started getting really involved, and I started connecting with business owners in the community. And it was that point that I had a huge shift. And because like my whole childhood, it was a dream for me to own a bakery. And in that moment, probably 6 months into networking and connecting with business owners, and we're in this like unique place here where people aren't, it's not like this crazy competition. If you meet a business owner, most of them are very humble here, and they want to share their story, they want to connect, they want to help. And so it was fascinating because I came from California when I moved here, and it's not like that there, and so it's very cutthroat. And here everyone's so willing to share and help. And so I was like, I love being a business owner and owning a bakery, but what I love more is connecting with entrepreneurs and business, and so like that was just this really pivotal time for me, and and now I'm on different boards, and I
Now you know everybody.
now I don't know. Surprisingly,
That's what
like
I feel
don't
like.
know everybody, but
You might not think it, but that's when we first started dating, and you were like, and we would talk about certain, like, oh yeah, I know them, and it was like, you know everybody, and
yeah,
I'm like, and it's part of because I never did any of the networking. Like most of my business was over the phone and in other areas, so I never had a need to really go out and mingle or do whatever. So I didn't understand the value of it.
yeah,
Now, I mean, this is something that I've learned from you, and now I absolutely love it because we make so many friends that
yeah.
are into the same things, and they're entrepreneurs as well, and it's awesome.
Yeah, no, I mean, and it really is awesome because you have so many opportunities to just help each other, and really, so if there's a key to this, right, a takeaway, the way that I found, and maybe it's different for everyone, but the way that I found to really connect and get to know people and become part of the community is by serving. And so when I join different committees, I join boards, I'm active in the community and in helping serve people. And so what's crazy is like maybe you wouldn't think it, but like that's where business owners spend a lot of their time, because a lot of us are the same way. And so I've met some really influential people, and it's not what you know, it's who you know. So yeah, it's been amazing.
I love that. Next question is, what do you love the most about being an entrepreneur?
All right, Christian.
Why
Take it
do
away.
I get put? How come I'm asking the questions to myself? Maybe I should
Right,
go.
I get
Maybe
it.
I should ask the question. I'll go sit over there, ask the question, and I'll run over here really quick, and then I'll answer it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like I need time to ponder, and you just know everything, so you're ready to go.
That's what my mom said when I was a teenager.
You know everything.
I thought I did anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure.
That's all teenagers, right?
Definitely.
So I would say for me, and this is something that's a little bit newer for me, and partly from what I learned from you with the networking side, is I always kept, and I think this is just what I learned as a kid, is I always kept either business and work separate from personal. Those were two separate things. So I went to work, I did what I needed to do, I came back, I had my home life. I think the thing that I like about entrepreneurship is I get to blend that, so I can kind of have the best of all of it. It's not like I have to keep it separate. There's things that I absolutely love to do, and I can incorporate that into. Well, I can blend those two sides. Like things I love to do with business, there's things I love to do personally, and I can blend those things together. I have a business partner that we're going on a trip in a few weeks, and that's a blast. And here, as we film this podcast, I have my 12-year-old right there, and he's running cameras. And so I'm blending some of this stuff into entrepreneurship. I never thought that would be something that would be a possibility. And I learned that from you with the networking, where it's like, hey, we're going to go and we're going to dinner with people or whatever, and we're meeting some amazing people and just having a blast. And then it ends up being that, like, when, hey, there's some sort of need or whatever, then we're doing some work together as well, and we know each other. And that wasn't my life before. It was everything is separate. So that's what I love about it now, is having the ability to really blend and go down any path that I want to go. Like, who are the people that I want to spend time with and hang around? And what kind of business can I create around that, where I'm getting to do a lot of the things that I love and spending time with people that I enjoy, but then creating the business around it.
Yeah.
That's the one for me. Did that give you enough time to come up with yours there?
No.
I can keep
I'm sure
going.
you can. I have no doubt about that.
Are you saying I talk a lot?
No.
Okay.
Would never.
All right.
So, I would say probably mine is relatively similar. Like, again, and I kind of touched on this in the last question, but I really do feel like, I mean, I love, okay, to be fair, there is one thing that really
Can we add
stands
some
out.
music right there when it was like, okay.
So honestly, my favorite part is creative problem solving. I really, really...
Endless supplies of that.
Yes, yes. it's just nonstop, and it just like triggers my creative side just like all the time because I'm like, okay, there's that problem. What can I do to solve it? Okay, there's that problem. What can I do to solve it? Like it's nonstop, and so I really feel like that's my favorite thing.
Entrepreneurship is definitely endless problem solving.
Yes.
And so if you are afraid of problems, it's gonna be tough.
Yeah.
There was something I learned about that though, really quick. That I don't remember who I learned it from, but because there's some people who are like, oh, once I've solved this one, then just another problem comes up, and they kind of get frustrated.
But it's fun.
But well, yeah. But here's the thing. It's like here's the thing, and I don't remember who this was. It was a book or mentor. If somebody knows, let me know. But it was, if you're having the same problems,
yeah,
then
yeah.
that's really a problem. But if you're having different problems, like you have a new problem, like that's a good thing. You're in the right
I know
direction.
you tell me that all the time.
So you keep going, and then the more you grow, it's like you're going to have a new problem, right? If you're having an event and the event's really successful, maybe your first one has 30 or 40 people, and your next one has 50, 60 people. And then if it grows really fast and becomes so successful and you've got 1,000 people, now you have a problem. You only have space for 50 people, and you've got 1,000 people that want it. And so you can look at those problems and say, oh my gosh, I don't want to jump from problem to problem. But as long as they're not the same problem and you've got problems that are progressing, like that's a good thing.
So I wanted to talk about this thing that I realized not too long ago.
We could take some of these conversations many different directions here. But anyways, let's go back to where we were.
So I think it was about maybe almost a year ago. And I was actually really frustrated that day, and I was walking along the beach, and I was just kind of thinking, and I climbed the tree, the same tree that I met you, and while I was climbing the tree, it occurred to me. So I actually really love fear. I have this like really weird relationship with fear, where like I like to just push through it and get into it and dive deep into it. And so most people aren't really like that. But like I ride motorcycles, and I like to jump off cliffs, and I like to jump out of planes, and I like to do crazy stuff. And so I was thinking, like, why am I so weird? Like, I know that's not really a question that can be solved, but
no comment.
Yeah. So I was thinking while I was climbing the tree, and I realized when I was a little girl, I loved climbing trees. Like, loved. I was obsessed with climbing trees. And I would climb to the tippy top of 80-foot trees and spy on the baseball players.
Have you seen the tree climbers in Maui?
Florida. Do you remember the ones where like the palm trees?
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, that was crazy.
Okay, well, maybe you should try that one.
I mean, we talked about
to the
it.
tippy top.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I love to like swam.
No.
It's really fun for me. Anyways, so I was sitting there thinking, and so when I was little, like my mom worked 3 jobs and she was never home. And so while I'm climbing these trees, there was no one there to tell me I couldn't do it. There was no one there to tell me it was too high. Be careful, get down, don't do that. And so I think that it built this unrealistic confidence that I could do anything.
Okay.
So I just had to share that. It was an interesting moment where I was like, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense why I'm crazy. So
now I know.
now you know.
Now I know, Matthew. Now we know. Okay. Next question. I will try to not take over this one. Okay.
Yeah, right.
What's a quote or book that drives your work ethic?
A book or quote that drives my work ethic. Okay, you go.
I was expecting. I was like, she's gonna pass the line. She's gonna pass it to me. All right. So mine.
I just know you're so eager to talk. So.
I know. I'm sorry. I try not. Yeah. Matthew, stop laughing. Anyways, so no, mine is 10x rule. Grant Cardone.
That's a good one.
And it's because it's because if you want to have success, you've got to work 10 times as hard. You got to shoot for something 10 times as hard. It's going to be hard. So a lot of people don't put out enough effort. And so if ever I'm feeling like I'm not things aren't going the way that I need to, or things are hard,
Mhm.
I like to listen to that book that says, if you think that things are hard, you need to try 10 times harder than what you're trying right now.
Mhm.
And if you do that, then success is guaranteed if you try 10 times harder. So I've listened to that book so many times that it's the one that kind of reignites the fire if I need it.
Yeah, that's fair. It is a good one.
Yeah.
So for me, there's like 50, but
50.
probably. So when I was moving to St. George from California, I had to, it was this crazy time. There's a lot of those, but I had to, I had to move in like 2 weeks, and I had to do it by myself. And when I was in California, I had some amazing neighbors that helped me load the truck. But I literally had to move 2 moving trucks and 2 cargo vans within a 2 week period of going back and forth. And I had kids like at the time. And so there was one where I had to get the cargo van um, from California to here and then back within a 24-hour period. So I didn't sleep, and
Well,
it was crazy. But at that time, I was just starting to get into self development, and probably the first book that I read was "You Are a Badass" by Jen Sincero, and I've read that book probably 4 or 5 times. But she's amazing, and so it really like inspired me, and it helped me realize like I am a badass. So every time I'm not sure, I just realize I'm a badass. So everyone's a badass, but mostly me. No, I'm just kidding. But Mel Robbins
humble
was
too.
great.
Humble
Yeah,
too.
yeah, for sure. Mel Robbins was great. Like she had a lot of really great books, and I really liked Think and Grow Rich. That's one of my
Oh, that was a
favorites.
good one.
And the part that I really liked in that book, there are so many, but that really stood out to me was like it's our sixth sense. And so some of us don't think about, what that is, and what it is our ability to be creative.
Mhm.
And what's weird for me is I've always been able to tap into that. That's a superpower of mine. And so I thought that was normal. I thought everybody was creative. Like I didn't know it was different. So in that book, I realized like you have to kind of be on a different, thought, level to get into your creative mind. And so I thought that was really cool. And then the other part on that was like just the ether and how our brain, like energy, right? And like how we're all connected, and how we can do masterminds and our brains will literally like connect with each other without our awareness. And then when you leave the mastermind, you start coming up with all these amazing ideas, and you're like, holy crap. It's like, you're just wired. And so those ones are really great for me. But
I don't know those ones.
really?
When you said you're a badass, it reminds me of the badass list, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so for those of you who don't know, and this is what I got from a friend of mine, Jimmy Rex, and he has a men's group, We Are the They, which I've been part of for quite a while, but he makes you put together a list of 50 reasons why you're a badass. And so
I have 100.
You have 100?
Just kidding.
And so the cool thing is though is you have to make that list, and sometimes you forget about those things that you've done that are really good, right? Because sometimes we can get stuck in this moment, like what's going on today, and we totally forget these really cool things we did in the past. And so it's a reminder, because I read it every morning, and it's a reminder of those things that you've done, so you can know that, hey, I've done some cool things, I can do more. And so it just kind of reminded me of that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it really is cool.
and I'm not sure where he got that from, or if there's anything related to that book, but I love that, because you need that reminder that you are a badass. You've done some things that are awesome.
Yeah.
And if you've done some things that are awesome, you can do them again.
Yeah. Yeah, she talks a lot about energy in that book too. So that was kind of where I kind of started my more of a spiritual journey. So just realizing that we're all connected, and we can manifest if we are on the right, in the right mindset. And so it was all really cool.
Okay, next question, and you can't pass this one off. You can't pass this one off. Okay. Why are you part of the Grindcast?
Oh
Why
my
start the
gosh.
Grindcast?
Really?
Why do you want to do the Grindcast? Yes, you can't pass it off to me. You
Your turn.
No.
So,
Why is it for you? Because we might have different reasons for it, different things that we're going for,
yeah.
right? But
Yeah, so it was interesting because recently you asked me if we should continue, if it was worth it, right? Like we have so many things going on in our lives. Is there value, right? And so my response to that was I think it's really important to be able to connect, and to share the experiences of the entrepreneurs that we meet and that are out there, because we all have this unique experience and unique journey that people can learn from. And like I was saying earlier, if we can share something that helps somebody not make a mistake that we had to make. It's kind of like with your kids where you're sharing stories. Yeah, Matthew. You're sharing stories to, and when your teenagers aren't telling you that you're gaslighting them by sharing your past stories. But, or maybe that's just my teenager. So, we share our stories to help others so that they don't have to struggle. And that was something like when I realized like how much I love business and I really wanted to do business coaching. And the reason I wanted that was because when I started out, there wasn't a lot of resources that I was aware of that I felt could help me. Like I felt very alone in the beginning. And unless you know a lot of people, unless you have a lot of money, like it's hard to get coaching, it's hard to get, mentors, it's hard to know what to do when you're in that space. You feel so alone. And so I wanted to just help people know that they're not alone. That there are people willing to help them, that there are, journeys and experiences that they can learn from. So, I mean, that's my why.
I love that. I love that. So I have two reasons. The first one is I think when I was growing up, it was mostly like paycheck to paycheck. That was just my experience of life, and it was like there were other people that were successful, but we weren't part of those people. Like for whatever reason, however that was for them, that wasn't for us. And kind of what I learned as I grew older that there's not really much special about those who have become successful. They're just not willing to quit. That's really all it is. It's not like they're, much smarter than everybody else. It's not like there's all of these advantages from what I've seen. It's just that they're willing to get in and work hard and figure it out. And so I think that it's great to. I want others to learn from those stories that if they say, hey, this person faced some difficulties and, if they can do it, then so can I. I mean, we've had, we have people that are coming on that have talked about just some amazing stories of where they were just a few years ago. And now, things are different. And so I want people to believe that it can happen for them. It doesn't have to be those people. It can be part of my life. And if I'm watching the Grindcast, I can hear all of these stories of these other people and kind of what they've faced and how they've come through it. And maybe I can pick up some nuggets from there. And when I face those challenges, I can get through it. Or when I feel that fear of starting a business, like, no, that's not for me. I'm, they can understand that we all face those same fears. We were afraid too, and we just did it. And even though we didn't feel like we were ready and we didn't feel like we knew enough, but we just did it and figured it out. So that's the first part. And the second part of it is I want people to know that hard is part of it. Challenge is part of it. It's not going to be easy. A lot of times we think, well, if I know how to, do something, it should just be easy. Like if I know how to mow a lawn, I should be able to mow a lawn and then have a really successful business about it. It's not how it works. It's going to be hard. And if you understand that it's going to be hard up front, and then that you can get through hard things, there's nothing stopping you.
Yeah. So there's something you said that I just kind of wanted to define, right? And so you said they're not quitters. So let's redefine that word quit, right? You've got winning and you've got learning. So we don't like entrepreneurs, people who succeed, right? It's because they fail, they quit, but they refuse to give up, right? They use those opportunities to learn and then take it to the next thing and take it to the next thing until the next thing succeeds, right?
Yeah, it's fail, succeed. Right. It's not like succeed, bigger. No, it's fail, succeed.
Right. And then there was something else. So I was talking to Cody the other day, and I was talking to Jeff before, and so Jeff was like, so I wanted to ask Cody about like how do you know when it's time to give up, right? Because you hit a wall and you have to make that decision. Like, is it time for it to end or is it time to push through it, right? And that's a hard one for a lot of people. And I've personally faced that, right?
You're talking about Cody Hoffline?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
great speaker, by the way.
Yes,
great. He's amazing.
He was an amazing speaker. So I was talking to Jeff before and I told him my opinion and I said, honestly, what I feel like the difference is and how you know when it's time to push through a challenge or it's time to pivot, I feel like it's all about feeling, right? How does it feel to you? Does it feel right or does it feel wrong? Like, is it a challenge that's unethical? Is it a challenge that doesn't feel right? Or is it a challenge that you just need to push through, right? And there's a difference. So, and Cody basically said the same thing. He said, you really have to just feel your way through it and know like when it's time, you'll know.
Yeah, that makes sense because there was a business that I closed down last year that I had fought through for a little while. And I thought, it's been extremely successful in the past and I could get it right back through there. But then I thought if I got it back through there, would I be happy? And I looked at that and I said, no, I wouldn't. Like there isn't any amount that it could make that it would make me happy. And so that was a moment for me to say, okay, if I look down the road and if I solve all these problems and I still don't really want to do this, it doesn't make sense to keep doing it.
Right.
It took me a couple years to make that decision.
Right.
Unfortunately,
Not saying it's
earlier,
easy.
But now that knowing what I know now, right, you keep learning.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to hear these stories from other people. So then you can know like, hey, if you're in this business, should you keep with it or should you exit it? Right? Maybe it's just not the right thing. Maybe it's not the right path. How do you know? Right. If there's no fulfillment there at the end of the day.
Yeah. When you lose the passion.
There's no path for it, right? If there's no passion for it, you don't feel good about what you're doing. It's not going to be there. It's time to move on, right?
Yep.
So, all right, this was fun. So, anyways, to everybody, we've got some amazing guests coming on here soon. We've filmed, 6 episodes of this or so.
We haven't filmed yet. This is episode 1. 0.
This is episode 0.
Episode 0.
Right.
So we haven't started filming yet.
Well, okay. Anyways, we're really excited for some of the people that are going to be coming on to share their stories, and so we hope you guys just stick with us and feel free to share this. We want everybody to hear these stories because we think it'll be helpful in a lot of different areas. So, anything you want to add? Putting you on the spot.
Oh gosh, you like doing that. No, so I mean, really, like we love this. We love the opportunity for people to learn from all the other business owners in the community for now, and then hopefully we can, expand that horizon at some point. But we just love everyone, and we want everyone to grow and join the entrepreneurial journey. So we're excited.
I love it. So weekly, we should start having episodes drop here. So thanks so much for watching or listening. If you're listening, thanks so much, guys.